Get out. You don't belong here. Brad Wilson doesn't even look up. He waves his hand like shooting a stray dog. His voice carries the casual cruelty of someone who's done this before. Oliver Thompson stands frozen in the doorway. The man points toward the exit with the confidence of absolute authority. I said get out. Are you deaf? Brad Wilson snaps his fingers twice, sharp, dismissive. The sound echoes off conference room walls like gunshots. 40 executives watch in stunned silence. No one moves, no one speaks. The humiliation fills every corner of conference room 15B. Security to conference room 15B now! Brad Wilson has just made the most expensive mistake in corporate history. The man he's ordering around like hired help carries papers in his briefcase that will change everything. What Brad doesn't know will cost him his career, his reputation, and his freedom. Like if you believe in instant karma. The reckoning starts now. 2 hours earlier, Oliver Thompson adjusts his tie in the bathroom mirror of his Brookline apartment. The navy silk feels smooth between his fingers. Today marks the culmination of 22 years climbing the corporate ladder. His reflection stares back with quiet determination. 41 years old, MIT graduate, former software engineer who coded his way through 3 startups before TechCorp's board noticed his turnaround expertise. The appointment email sits open on his laptop screen. Effective November 15, 2024, Oliver Thompson will assume the role of Chief Executive Officer, TechCorp Boston Division. Sent to all 437 employees yesterday at 4:47 p.m. His wife, Sarah, kisses his cheek at the kitchen counter. Ready for your first day as the boss? Her smile carries pride mixed with concern. They both know what he's walking into. TechCorp's quarterly reports tell a brutal story. Revenue down 18%. Client retention at an all-time low. Employee satisfaction surveys reveal a toxic culture of favoritism and discrimination complaints that mysteriously disappear into HR's filing cabinets. The previous CEO resigned under mysterious circumstances. Whispers of SEC investigations, rumors of financial irregularities. The board needed someone clean, someone with integrity. Oliver walks through Boston's financial district at 10:15 a.m. His new leather briefcase contains organizational charts, budget projections, and a 3-page reform plan. Morning commuters rush past on Federal Street, unaware that the man in the charcoal suit carries the power to reshape one of the city's largest technology companies. TechCorp's glass tower stretches 32 stories into the November sky. Oliver has visited twice during the interview process. Both times he noticed the same pattern. Executives on floors 25 through 30, overwhelmingly white, male, middle-aged. Engineering staff on floors 3 through 15, diverse, talented, systematically excluded from decision-making. The lobby receptionist doesn't recognize him. Her smile is polite, but distant. The security guard checks Oliver's ID twice before printing a visitor badge. Conference room 15B, the elevator operator announces. Executive level. Oliver steps onto the 28th floor at 10:43 a.m. Mahogany paneling lines the hallway. Oil paintings of former executives gaze down with inherited privilege. The air smells of leather furniture and old money. His first board meeting as CEO begins in 7 minutes. 43 executives and department heads scheduled to attend. The agenda includes quarterly reviews, budget approvals, and introductory remarks from their new leader. Oliver practiced his opening speech during the cab ride. Leadership isn't about authority. It's about accountability. Simple. Direct. A preview of the cultural transformation he plans to implement. The announcement email guaranteed every department head would be present. Regional Manager Brad Wilson confirmed attendance yesterday evening. Marketing Director Janet Stevens replied within minutes. Operations Chief Thomas Anderson sent regrets from a client meeting in Hartford. Oliver approaches conference room 15B with measured confidence. Through the glass walls, he counts 38 people seated around the oval table. Conversations buzz about quarterly projections and year-end bonuses. He reaches for the handle, briefcase secure in his left hand. The leather portfolio contains his MIT diploma, board resolution appointing him CEO, and the reform strategy that will revolutionize TechCorp's corporate culture. What he doesn't anticipate is walking into a room where his skin color matters more than his credentials. Oliver pushes open the glass door of conference room 15B at 10:47 a.m. Conversations halt mid-sentence. 38 faces turn toward the entrance. Brad Wilson looks up from his quarterly reports. His eyes narrow instantly. The transformation happens in milliseconds. Professional demeanor replaced by territorial hostility. "Excuse me." Brad's voice cuts through the silence like a machete. "This is a private executive meeting." Oliver steps forward with measured confidence. His briefcase clicks against his leg. The morning sunlight streams through floor-to-ceiling windows, casting sharp shadows across the mahogany table. "I'm here for the 10:45 board meeting," Oliver says calmly. Brad Wilson's face hardens. His pen drops onto the quarterly budget with a sharp tap. Around the table, executives exchange uncomfortable glances. The air conditioning hums overhead while tension builds like pressure in a sealed container. "You people need to check with reception before entering restricted areas." Brad emphasizes each word with growing irritation. His finger points toward the door with military precision. Marketing Director Janet Stevens shifts in her seat. Operations Chief Thomas Anderson studies his smartphone with sudden fascination. Finance Director Robert Taylor clears his throat but says nothing. Oliver remains motionless in the doorway. His grip tightens on his briefcase handle. 22 years of corporate experience taught him to stay calm under pressure. But nothing prepared him for this. "Sir, I think there's been a misunderstanding," Oliver begins. "The only misunderstanding," Brad Wilson interrupts, "is you thinking you belong in this room." The words hang in the air like toxic smoke. 40 pairs of eyes watch this public degradation unfold in real time. Security cameras mounted in the corners record every second at timestamp 10:47:23 a.m. "Security to conference room 15B immediately," Brad calls toward the hallway intercom. His voice carries the authority of 15 years managing TechCorp's regional operations. Senior Vice President Margaret Davis fidgets with her pearl necklace. Technology Director James Mitchell stares at his laptop screen. Nobody moves. Nobody speaks. The complicity of silence fills every corner of the room. Oliver's jaw tightens almost imperceptibly. His breathing remains steady despite the adrenaline flooding his system. The humiliation burns behind his eyes, but his voice stays level. "I need to show you something," Oliver says, reaching toward his briefcase. "Don't." Brad Wilson's hand slams against the table. Coffee cups rattle. Papers scatter. "Keep your hands visible and step away from the table." The room recoils collectively. Gasps echo off glass walls. This has escalated beyond uncomfortable into dangerous territory. "You're making a serious mistake," Oliver states with quiet dignity. "The mistake," Brad Wilson stands slowly, "is yours for thinking you can walk into my meeting uninvited." His meeting. The possessive pronoun reveals everything. Brad Wilson doesn't just see this as protocol enforcement. He sees this as defending his territory against an unwelcome intrusion. Footsteps echo down the hallway. Security approaches conference room 15B with mechanical precision. Oliver hears the jingle of handcuffs, the squeak of leather boots on polished marble. "Last chance to leave voluntarily," Brad Wilson announces with theatrical authority. His chest puffs with righteous indignation. Around the table, executives avoid eye contact like children witnessing domestic violence. Oliver Thompson stands perfectly still. His breathing remains controlled. His posture stays upright despite the psychological assault. The briefcase in his left hand contains documents that will change everything. But nobody knows that yet. The security guard appears in the doorway behind Oliver. Badge number 447 gleams under fluorescent lighting. His radio crackles with dispatcher chatter. Problem here, Mr. Wilson? The guard asks with practiced indifference. Brad Wilson points at Oliver like identifying a criminal in a lineup. This individual entered a restricted executive meeting without authorization. Please escort him from the building. The temperature in conference room 15B drops 10 degrees. Everyone holds their breath. The moment stretches like a rubber band ready to snap. Oliver Thompson reaches slowly into his briefcase. His fingers find the manila folder containing his board appointment letter, the document that will vindicate him and destroy Brad Wilson's career simultaneously. What happens next will shock everyone in the room. Oliver's hand moves with deliberate precision toward his briefcase. The security guard steps closer, radio crackling with static. Badge number 447 reflects fluorescent lighting as he positions himself behind Oliver's right shoulder. Slowly, Brad Wilson commands from across the conference table. His voice carries the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed without question. Oliver unzips the leather portfolio with measured calm. His fingers locate a manila folder marked Tech Corp, Executive Correspondence. The paper inside rustles softly as he extracts a single document. This is the meeting confirmation email, Oliver states, holding the printout toward the center of the table. Sent yesterday at 4:47 p.m. by Executive Assistant Linda Morrison. Marketing Director Janet Stevens leans forward to read the header. Her eyes widen slightly as she processes the recipient line. O. Thompson at techrevomail.com. CEO appointment meeting, conference room 15B. Brad Wilson's confidence wavers for exactly 2 seconds. His eyes dart between the email printout and Oliver's face. The calculation happens in real time, doubt creeping into certainty like water through a crack. Anyone can forge an email, Brad declares, but his voice lacks its previous conviction. Show me proper identification. Oliver reaches into his jacket pocket with deliberate slowness. The security guard's hand moves instinctively toward his belt radio. Tension fills conference room 15B like expanding gas. The business cards emerge pristine white against Oliver's palm. Embossed black lettering reads, Oliver Thompson, Chief Executive Officer, Tech Corp, Boston Division. The corporate logo gleams under LED lighting. Finance Director Robert Taylor adjusts his glasses for a closer look. Senior Vice President Margaret Davis stops fidgeting with her pearl necklace. Technology Director James Mitchell finally looks up from his laptop screen. Business cards prove nothing, Brad Wilson insists, though his aggressive posture begins to deflate. Anyone can print business cards at Kinko's. Operations Chief Thomas Anderson clears his throat uncomfortably. Brad, maybe we should call Linda Morrison to verify. We're not calling anyone, Brad snaps, cutting off the suggestion with bureaucratic fury. His finger points again toward Oliver, though the gesture lacks its previous authority. This meeting is for department heads and senior executives only. Oliver's jaw tightens almost imperceptibly. 22 years of corporate politics taught him patience, but Brad Wilson's obstinate resistance tests every limit. I am a senior executive, Oliver states with quiet steel. The senior executive. The room's atmosphere shifts like barometric pressure before a storm. Conversations die completely. Coffee cups remain frozen halfway to lips. Smartphones stop buzzing as everyone processes this declaration. Brad Wilson's face cycles through confusion, disbelief, and growing alarm. His quarterly budget sheets crinkle as his grip tightens involuntarily. Check the board announcement, Oliver continues, his voice carrying newfound authority. Sent company-wide yesterday afternoon. Effective November 15th, Oliver Thompson assumes the role of Chief Executive Officer. Marketing Director Janet Stevens pulls out her smartphone with trembling fingers. Her thumbs dance across the screen, scrolling through yesterday's emails. The search takes 30 seconds that feel like 30 minutes. I found it, she whispers, then louder. Here. Board Resolution 2024-11-15. Oliver Thompson was appointed as CEO effective immediately. The silence that follows could shatter glass. Security guard 447 takes an involuntary step backward. His radio crackles with dispatcher chatter that suddenly seems intrusive and inappropriate. The handcuffs on his belt jingle softly as he shifts weight between feet. Senior Vice President Margaret Davis covers her mouth with manicured fingers. Operations Chief Thomas Anderson stares at Brad Wilson with growing horror. Finance Director Robert Taylor removes his glasses entirely and cleans them with obsessive precision. Brad Wilson's face drains of color like water from a punctured balloon. His mouth opens and closes soundlessly. The quarterly reports scattered across his section of the table suddenly seem as relevant as yesterday's weather forecast. "This is impossible," Brad whispers, but his voice lacks any remaining conviction. Oliver reaches into his briefcase one final time. The document he extracts bears the official Tech Corp letterhead and board seal, heavy paper stock that government offices use for important proclamations. Board Resolution 2024-1115, Oliver reads aloud. By unanimous vote of the Tech Corp Board of Directors, Oliver Thompson is hereby appointed Chief Executive Officer, Boston Division, effective November 15, 2024. Signed by Board Chairman William Anderson, Secretary Maria Rodriguez, and all 7 voting members. The paper passes from hand to hand around the conference table. Each executive examines the signatures, the embossed seal, the official formatting that leaves no room for doubt. Technology Director James Mitchell breaks the silence with an observation that cuts through confusion like a surgical blade. Today is November 15th. The implications cascade through conference room 15B like dominoes falling in slow motion. Brad Wilson just ordered security to remove his own boss. He publicly humiliated the man appointed to lead TechCorp's transformation. He demonstrated exactly the kind of discriminatory behavior that cost the previous CEO his position. Security guard 447 speaks into his radio with obvious discomfort. "Control, disregard previous request for conference room 15B. No assistance required." Oliver Thompson stands perfectly still while vindication washes over the room like cleansing rain. His breathing remains steady. His posture stays professional. The briefcase in his left hand contains additional documents that will soon become evidence. But Brad Wilson isn't finished making mistakes. Oliver slides the board resolution across the mahogany table with ceremonial precision. The document lands directly in front of Brad Wilson like a legal subpoena. Heavy paper stock bears the official Tech Corp seal embossed in gold foil. Brad Wilson stares at the document as if it might spontaneously combust. His hands tremble slightly as he lifts the resolution for closer examination. The signatures are unmistakable. The date stamp reads November 14, 2024, 3:17 p.m. Board Resolution 2024-1115, Oliver announces with quiet authority. Unanimous appointment. 7 signatures. Notarized and filed with the Massachusetts Secretary of State yesterday evening. The power dynamic in Conference Room 15B shifts like tectonic plates. Executives who moments ago sat silent during Oliver's humiliation now lean forward with eager attention. The air itself seems to reorganize around the new hierarchy. Marketing Director Janet Stevens clears her throat nervously. "Mr. Thompson, I sincerely apologize for this misunderstanding. We had no idea." "The announcement went company-wide yesterday," Oliver interrupts gently. "Every department head received notification." Senior Vice President Margaret Davis pulls out her smartphone with frantic urgency. Her fingers scroll through yesterday's emails like a prosecutor searching for evidence. The search takes 23 seconds. "Here," she whispers, then louder. "Company-wide announcement. Subject line, new CEO appointment, Oliver Thompson. Sent at 4:47 p.m. yesterday." Technology Director James Mitchell's laptop screen reflects his growing horror as he locates the same email in his inbox. Operations Chief Thomas Anderson removes his glasses and cleans them obsessively, as if poor vision explains this catastrophic oversight. Brad Wilson's jaw works silently. His face cycles through denial, confusion, and mounting panic. The quarterly reports scattered across his section of table suddenly represent potential evidence of his incompetence, rather than professional accomplishments. "This doesn't change anything," Brad declares with desperate defiance. "Security protocols exist for everyone. I was protecting this meeting from unauthorized intrusion." The statement hangs in conference room 15B like poisonous gas. Nobody moves. Nobody breathes. The audacity of Brad Wilson doubling down after his mistake becomes apparent renders everyone speechless. Oliver's voice remains perfectly calm. "You ordered security to remove the chief executive officer from his own meeting." The words land with surgical precision. Security guard 447 shifts uncomfortably near the doorway, his radio silent for the first time in 10 minutes. The handcuffs on his belt jingle softly as he considers retreat. Finance Director Robert Taylor speaks with careful diplomacy. "Brad, perhaps we should acknowledge this unfortunate misunderstanding and move forward with the scheduled agenda." "Misunderstanding?" Brad Wilson's voice cracks with strain. "I followed proper protocol. Anyone could walk into this room claiming to be CEO. I was protecting sensitive information." Oliver reaches into his briefcase with deliberate calm. Additional documents emerge: MIT diploma, previous employment records, character references from 3 Fortune 500 CEOs. The paper trail of his qualifications spreads across the conference table like playing cards. "Your protocol," Oliver states with measured steel, "involved racial profiling and discriminatory assumptions." The accusation detonates in conference room 15B like a verbal grenade. Gasps echo off glass walls. Executives exchange panicked glances. The complicity of their silence during Oliver's humiliation now carries legal implications. Brad Wilson's face flushes crimson. "That's completely false. Race had nothing to do with my decision. I would have challenged anyone who entered this meeting without proper identification." Marketing Director Janet Stevens winces visibly. Senior Vice President Margaret Davis studies her manicured fingernails with sudden fascination. The collective discomfort grows thick enough to cut with a knife. Oliver Thompson stands perfectly still while vindication settles around him like a tailored suit. His breathing remains controlled. His posture radiates quiet authority that fills every corner of the room. The briefcase beside his chair contains additional documents that will soon become crucial evidence. But this is only the beginning of what Oliver Thompson plans to uncover about TechCorp's corporate culture. 2 hours later, Oliver Thompson sits across from Sarah Johnson in her corner office on the 26th floor. The HR director's credentials hang on mahogany-paneled walls: Harvard Law degree, SHRM certification, 15 years managing corporate personnel issues. Sarah's fingers hesitate over her computer keyboard. The database search she's about to conduct will either vindicate Brad Wilson or expose a systematic pattern that could destroy TechCorp's reputation. "Are you certain you want to proceed?" Sarah asks quietly. "Once we open this investigation, there's no going back." Oliver's voice carries unwavering resolve. "Show me everything." The HR database loads with bureaucratic efficiency. Sarah's security clearance grants access to all personnel files, disciplinary records, and complaint documentation spanning TechCorp's 23-year corporate history. "Let's start with Brad Wilson's management record," Sarah suggests, her cursor hovering over the search function. The first entry appears instantly: HR complaint number 2019-033, filed September 12, 2019. Engineering associate Carlos Martinez alleges discriminatory treatment during project assignments. Complainant claims regional manager Brad Wilson consistently passed him over for high-visibility projects despite superior performance reviews. Sarah clicks open the full report. The details paint a disturbing picture of systematic exclusion. Carlos Martinez, MIT graduate with dual degrees in electrical and computer engineering, repeatedly relegated to maintenance tasks while less qualified white colleagues received leadership opportunities. "What happened to the complaint?" Oliver asks, noting the brief resolution summary. "Dismissed after 2 weeks. Insufficient evidence. Carlos Martinez transferred to the Hartford office 3 months later." Sarah's voice carries professional disappointment. His termination paperwork cites cultural misfit as the primary reason. The second complaint loads automatically. HR complaint number 2021-067, filed March 8, 2021. Financial analyst Jennifer Kim reports a hostile work environment and discriminatory comments from regional manager Brad Wilson during quarterly budget meetings. Oliver reads the witness statements with growing anger. Jennifer Kim, Harvard MBA with 5 years Wall Street experience, was subjected to repeated questioning about her real educational background and suggestions that her analytical skills might be culturally influenced. Brad Wilson's written response claims he was ensuring thorough vetting of financial projections, Sarah explains, scrolling through the documentation. He argued that additional scrutiny of international perspectives was standard practice. The complaint resolution reveals the same pattern. Dismissed after minimal investigation, complainant transferred to subsidiary office, eventual resignation citing irreconcilable differences. There's more, Sarah continues, her voice tight with suppressed anger. HR complaint, number 2023-012, appears on screen. Software developer Marcus Washington alleges racial discrimination and hostile work environment created by regional manager Brad Wilson during team meetings and performance evaluations. The documentation spans 47 pages of detailed incidents, witness statements, and supporting evidence. Marcus Washington, Georgia Tech graduate with 8 years development experience, systematically excluded from client meetings despite technical expertise exceeding his colleagues. Listen to this, Sarah reads from Brad Wilson's recorded statement during the HR investigation. Washington's communication style might not align with our client's expectations. Some customers prefer more traditional presentation approaches. Oliver's jaw tightens as the implications become clear. Traditional presentation approaches. Code language, Sarah confirms grimly. The complaint includes recordings of team meetings where Brad Wilson repeatedly interrupted Marcus, questioned his technical competence, and suggested he might be more comfortable working on internal projects rather than client-facing assignments. The resolution follows the established pattern. Complaint dismissed, employee transferred, eventual resignation. Marcus Washington now works for a competitor in Silicon Valley, his departure costing TechCorp an estimated $400,000 in recruitment and training investments. 3 separate complaints over 5 years, Oliver summarizes, his voice carrying controlled fury. 3 minority employees, all dismissed, all transferred, all eventually driven out of the company. Sarah scrolls through additional database entries. The pattern extends beyond formal complaints into performance evaluation discrepancies, promotion statistics, and salary advancement data. Brad Wilson's direct reports show disturbing demographic trends, Sarah explains, pulling up organizational charts spanning 2019 through 2024. 43 employees under his supervision, 31 white, 12 minorities. Of the 12 minorities, 8 have been transferred or terminated. Average tenure, 14 months versus 41 months for white employees. The statistical evidence builds like a prosecutor's case file. Promotion rates, salary increases, project assignments, performance bonuses. Every metric reveals systematic discrimination disguised as management discretion. Comment below if you've witnessed workplace discrimination. Your voice matters. Oliver studies the documentation with prosecutorial intensity. Each complaint represents a human being whose career was derailed by Brad Wilson's prejudices. The financial impact extends beyond individual suffering into corporate liability and brand reputation damage. We need to contact these former employees, Oliver decides. Carlos Martinez, Jennifer Kim, Marcus Washington. Their testimony could be crucial for building a comprehensive case. Sarah's expression grows troubled. There's something else you should know. All 3 signed non-disclosure agreements as part of their departure packages. Standard severance terms include confidentiality clauses, preventing public discussion of their TechCorp experiences. the legal complexity multiplies exponentially. Brad Wilson's discrimination wasn't just systematic. It was legally protected through corporate policy designed to shield TechCorp from reputational damage and financial liability. NDAs don't prevent internal investigations, Oliver counters. We can interview them confidentially as part of our due diligence process. Sarah nods slowly, her fingers resuming their keyboard navigation. Additional entries populate the screen. Informal complaints, manager feedback sessions, exit interview summaries that paint increasingly damning pictures of Brad Wilson's leadership style. The exit interviews are particularly revealing, Sarah explains, opening a file marked Confidential, Management Review Only. Recurring themes include cultural insensitivity, discriminatory behavior, and hostile work environment specifically targeting employees of color. Technology Director James Mitchell appears in the office doorway, his face pale with obvious distress. Sarah, Oliver, I need to share something. After this morning's meeting, several employees approached me privately. They want to discuss their experiences with Brad Wilson. The investigation scope expands beyond historical documentation into current employee testimony. Oliver's vindication transforms into corporate obligation. Protecting existing staff from ongoing discrimination requires immediate action. How many employees? Sarah asks, already reaching for additional legal pads. 12 so far, probably more by the end of business. Word is spreading quickly through the engineering and finance departments. James Mitchell's voice carries a mixture of relief and apprehension. People feel safe speaking up for the first time in years. Oliver stands slowly, the weight of leadership settling on his shoulders like a heavy coat. The morning's humiliation has evolved into a systematic investigation that could reshape TechCorp's entire corporate culture. The briefcase beside his chair contains his reform strategy, but the implementation timeline just accelerated dramatically. Brad Wilson's discrimination represents the visible symptom of deeper institutional problems requiring immediate surgical intervention. What Oliver discovers next will expand this investigation beyond individual prejudice into criminal territory. The legal documents arrive at Oliver Thompson's home address on Friday evening at 5:47 p.m. Federal Express envelope, signature required, marked Urgent Legal Notice. His wife Sarah signs for the package while Oliver reviews quarterly budget projections in his home office. "Honey, this looks serious," Sarah calls from the foyer, holding the thick manila envelope with obvious concern. Oliver opens the package with growing apprehension. Letterhead from Whitman, Bradley and Associates, Boston's most expensive corporate defense firm. The opening paragraph detonates like a legal grenade. Cease and desist. Defamation and false accusations. Our client, Bradford Wilson, demands immediate retraction of false statements regarding alleged discriminatory behavior. Failure to comply within 72 hours will result in civil litigation seeking damages exceeding $5 million. The document spans 12 pages of legal threats, character assassination, and financial intimidation. Brad Wilson's attorneys paint Oliver's investigation as a vindictive witch hunt, designed to deflect attention from his own questionable qualifications and lack of industry experience. Sarah reads over Oliver's shoulder, her face growing pale with each threatening paragraph. "Can they actually sue you for conducting an HR investigation?" "They can sue for anything," Oliver replies grimly. "Winning is different from filing." The legal strategy becomes clear as Oliver analyzes each accusation. Brad Wilson isn't just defending against discrimination charges. He's launching a preemptive strike designed to discredit Oliver's leadership before the investigation gains momentum. Page 7 contains the most insidious attacks, suggestions that Oliver's appointment resulted from diversity politics rather than merit, implications that his reform agenda represents reverse discrimination, and demands for public apology to restore Mr. Wilson's reputation. Oliver's smartphone buzzes with incoming text messages. Board member Robert Taylor. "Concerned about legal exposure. Need to discuss Monday a.m. Senior Vice President Margaret Davis. Perhaps hasty investigation should be reconsidered pending legal review. The pressure campaign extends beyond legal threats into political maneuvering. Brad Wilson's allies within TechCorp's old guard network mobilized to protect their embattled colleague and preserve the status quo that enabled his behavior. Monday morning brings additional intimidation tactics. Oliver arrives at his office to find Technology Director James Mitchell waiting with obvious distress. Several board members called over the weekend, James reports quietly. They're questioning whether pursuing this investigation serves TechCorp's best interests. There's talk of bringing in external mediators to resolve this matter quietly. Translation: cover-up disguised as conflict resolution. Marketing Director Janet Stevens appears in the doorway with similar concerns. Oliver, I support what you're doing, but the legal risks are enormous. Brad Wilson's attorneys are claiming we're creating a hostile work environment for white male employees. The irony burns like acid. The same executives who sat silent during Oliver's public humiliation now worry about creating hostility for his discriminatory tormentor. Oliver's personal phone rings during lunch. Unknown Boston area code. The voice on the other end carries subtle menace disguised as professional courtesy. Mr. Thompson, this is Detective Michael O'Brien, Boston Police Internal Affairs. I understand you're making serious allegations against a respected member of our business community. False accusations can have serious legal consequences. The implication crystallizes immediately. Brad Wilson's influence extends beyond TechCorp into law enforcement connections that could potentially complicate Oliver's investigation or personal safety. I'm conducting a routine HR review of employee complaints, Oliver responds carefully. All documentation is legitimate and properly verified. Sometimes legitimate documentation can be misinterpreted, Detective O'Brien suggests, with practiced ambiguity. Might be wise to consider whether pursuing this matter serves everyone's best interests. The call ends after 43 seconds, but the message resonates for hours. Brad Wilson's network includes connections capable of making Oliver's professional and personal life extremely complicated. Evening brings the most devastating pressure. Oliver's teenage daughter Emma approaches his home office with tears in her eyes. Dad, kids at school are talking about some lawsuit against you. Madison's father works at TechCorp, and he says you're trying to get innocent people fired because of their race. The poison spreads beyond corporate boardrooms into his family's daily life. Brad Wilson's defense strategy includes reputational warfare designed to isolate Oliver from community support and professional credibility. Sarah Thompson joins the conversation with protective maternal fury. This has gone too far. These people are attacking our children to save their prejudiced colleague. Oliver stares at his reflection in the office window as evening darkness settles over Brookline. The investigation that began as moral obligation has escalated into legal warfare with potentially devastating consequences for his family, career, and financial security. His briefcase contains irrefutable evidence of Brad Wilson's discriminatory pattern, but justice requires more than documentation. It demands willingness to sacrifice personal comfort for principled action. The cease and desist letter lies open on his desk beside budget projections and reform strategies. $5 million lawsuit threat versus ethical responsibility to TechCorp employees who endured years of systematic discrimination. Brad Wilson maintains his actions were protocol-based security measures, not discriminatory treatment. His legal team argues that Oliver's investigation represents retaliation for legitimate management decisions rather than pursuit of workplace justice. Oliver reaches for his laptop and begins typing his resignation letter. Perhaps retreat serves everyone's interests better than prolonged legal warfare that could destroy his family's financial security and professional future. But something stops his fingers above the keyboard. Oliver sits in his car in the underground parking garage, engine off, questioning everything. The concrete walls press inward like a tomb. Fluorescent lights flicker overhead, casting sickly shadows across his dashboard. The resignation letter remains unfinished on his laptop screen. cursor blinking after, "I hereby tender my resignation as Chief Executive Officer, effective." He can't complete the sentence. His smartphone displays 17 missed calls, legal voicemails from Brad Wilson's attorneys demanding immediate response to their cease and desist demands. Board members expressing concern about TechCorp's exposure to litigation. HR Director Sarah Johnson requested urgent consultation about employee safety. The weight of leadership feels crushing tonight. 22 years climbing corporate ladders, building credibility, earning respect, all potentially destroyed by one morning's stand for principle. Emma's tear-stained face haunts his memory. His daughter shouldn't pay for his moral choices. Teenagers have enough challenges without classmates discussing their father's lawsuits during lunch conversations. Sarah Thompson appears in the passenger seat without invitation. Her expression carries the exhausted determination of a military spouse watching her husband deploy to dangerous territory. "The kids are asking questions," she says quietly. "Emma wants to know if we'll lose the house. Michael heard rumors about Dad getting fired." Oliver's hands tighten on the steering wheel until his knuckles turn white. The practical mathematics of moral courage calculate poorly against family security and children's college funds. "Maybe I should resign," he whispers, the words tasting like poison. "Find another position where I can make changes without destroying our lives." Sarah studies his profile in the dim garage lighting. "Remember why you took this job? You said TechCorp needed someone willing to do what previous CEOs wouldn't. Someone who understood what discrimination felt like." The memory floods back. His own experiences as the only black engineer in startup boardrooms, watching qualified colleagues passed over for promotion, enduring subtle questions about his real qualifications despite MIT credentials. "But at what cost?" Oliver asks, his voice cracking slightly. $5 million lawsuit. Criminal investigation threats. Our children's reputations are destroyed before they graduate high school. The garage air conditioning hums with mechanical indifference. Other executives' cars surround them, luxury sedans and imported SUVs belonging to people who never questioned whether they belonged in conference rooms. Sarah's hand finds his on the steering wheel. "Carlos Martinez called today. Found our home number somehow. He's working in Silicon Valley now, making twice his TechCorp salary." Oliver looks up with surprise. "What did he say?" "That he prays every night someone would finally hold Brad Wilson accountable. That he'd testify publicly if legal immunity could be arranged. That he has documentation Brad ordered him to destroy." The revelation cuts through Oliver's despair like sunlight through storm clouds. Carlos Martinez, the first victim documented in Sarah Johnson's HR files, preserved evidence despite non-disclosure agreements and intimidation tactics. "Jennifer Kim contacted him after seeing news reports about your investigation," Sarah continues. "Marcus Washington, too. They've been connecting with each other, sharing experiences, and building support networks." Oliver's breathing deepens as hope replaces hopelessness. His resignation isn't just personal surrender. It's abandonment of people who trusted him to create change they couldn't achieve individually. What would you do in Oliver's position? Let us know below. His smartphone buzzes with an incoming text message from an unknown number. "Mr. Thompson, this is Marcus Washington. Saw the news. I have recordings Brad Wilson doesn't know exist. Ready to help if you're ready to fight." Oliver deletes the resignation letter without saving. His family deserves protection, but TechCorp employees deserve justice. Sometimes moral courage requires accepting personal sacrifice for collective benefit. The parking garage feels less like a tomb now, more like a launching pad. Tuesday morning will bring reinforcements he never expected. Tuesday morning transforms TechCorp's 28th floor into an unexpected battleground for corporate justice. Oliver arrives at 7:30 a.m. to find 12 employees waiting outside his office. Engineers, analysts, project managers, administrative staff, a diverse coalition united by shared experience. Software developer Lisa Rodriguez speaks first. Mr. Thompson, we heard about the legal threats. We want you to know you're not alone in this fight. The group represents every department affected by Brad Wilson's discriminatory management. Stories emerge that HR files never documented, promotions denied, ideas stolen, contributions minimized, talents systematically undervalued based on skin color and ethnic background. Brad Wilson told me my accent made clients uncomfortable, shares financial analyst David Patel, his MIT credentials apparently insufficient to overcome Brad's prejudices. I've been practicing American pronunciation for 3 years. By 10:15 a.m., the coalition grew to 26 employees. By lunch, 43 people sign a public letter of support that will change everything. We, the undersigned employees of TechCorp Boston, stand in full support of CEO Oliver Thompson's investigation into discriminatory practices. Our experiences confirm patterns of bias that require immediate corporate accountability. The letter circulates through TechCorp's email system like a digital wildfire. Departments that maintained silent complicity for years suddenly find voices. Witnesses emerge from administrative shadows, ready to testify about behaviors they previously endured in isolation. Marketing coordinator Ashley Carter approaches Oliver during lunch break. I've been documenting Brad's comments for 18 months. Every racist joke, every compliment about my English skills, every suggestion that I might be happier working somewhere more culturally appropriate. The documentation reveals Brad Wilson's discrimination extended far beyond the 3 formal complaints in HR files. Dozens of employees experienced systematic bias without filing official reports, afraid of retaliation, convinced nothing would change, resigned to accepting hostility as employment cost. Technology reporter Marcus Davis from the Boston Herald requests an interview Tuesday afternoon. His investigative background includes exposing corruption in city government and discriminatory practices in financial services. This story has regional implications, Marcus explains, recording devices positioned between them. Workplace discrimination lawsuits are increasing statewide. Your case could set precedent for corporate accountability. By Thursday morning, #JusticeForOliver trends on social media platforms. Employee testimonials appear on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram, carefully worded to avoid legal liability while expressing unambiguous support. The Boston chapter of the NAACP contacts Oliver's assistant requesting a meeting to discuss potential advocacy support. Local employment attorneys offer pro bono consultation. Civil rights organizations recognize this case as an opportunity to challenge systemic workplace discrimination. Public opinion shifts dramatically in Oliver's favor. Comments sections fill with similar stories from workers across industries. The narrative evolves from disgruntled CEO versus respected manager into brave leader challenging institutional racism. Friday's Boston Herald front page features Marcus Davis's investigation. Discrimination pattern exposed. Tech executive faces federal review for racist management practices. The article includes anonymous quotes from 12 current employees and statistical analysis of Brad Wilson's promotion and termination patterns. TechCorp's stock price dropped 3 points on Friday afternoon. Investors respond negatively to discrimination scandals that create legal liability and damage corporate reputation. Board members who previously supported Brad Wilson begin private discussions about damage control strategies. The coalition of employee support provides Oliver with moral armor against legal intimidation. Individual voices combine into collective power that corporate attorneys cannot easily dismiss or silence. But the real bombshell discovery is still coming. Monday morning's emergency audit meeting reveals more than anyone anticipated. Finance Director Robert Taylor spreads quarterly expenditure reports across the conference table like evidence at a crime scene. The numbers tell a story that transforms discrimination investigation into federal criminal matter. These invoices don't match our approved vendor contracts, Robert announces, his voice tight with controlled alarm. Systematic discrepancies spanning 36 months. Oliver studies the documentation with prosecutorial intensity. Vendor payments to Premier Consulting Solutions total $847,000 for services never rendered. Executive Advisory Services, LLC, received $1.2 million for consultation projects with no deliverable documentation. Who authorized these payments? Oliver asks, though pattern recognition already provides the answer. Regional Manager Brad Wilson. All invoices bear his signature and approval codes. Robert Taylor's finger traces payment authorizations that reveal systematic embezzlement disguised as legitimate business expenses. The scope expands as additional irregularities surface. Software licensing fees inflated by 40% above market rates. Maintenance contracts renewed automatically without competitive bidding. Conference expenses for events that never occurred. Total exposure exceeds $2.3 million over 3 years, Robert summarizes grimly. Brad Wilson's budget authority allowed these transactions without board oversight. Oliver's smartphone buzzes with an urgent message from HR Director Sarah Johnson. SEC investigation opened this morning. Federal agents requesting all financial records related to Brad Wilson's departmental expenditures. The discrimination case suddenly becomes a federal securities fraud investigation. Brad Wilson's racist behavior wasn't just morally reprehensible, it was calculated misdirection designed to distract attention from systematic theft. Technology Director James Mitchell enters the conference room with additional damaging evidence. IT Forensics recovered deleted emails from Brad's computer. He's been communicating with fake vendor companies using encrypted messaging applications. The email trail reveals an elaborate money laundering scheme. Premier Consulting Solutions exists only as a post office box registered to Brad Wilson's brother-in-law in Delaware. Executive Advisory Services, LLC, traces to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands with Brad Wilson as beneficial owner. The discrimination investigation provided perfect cover for financial crimes. While HR departments investigated racist comments and biased promotion decisions, millions of dollars disappeared through fraudulent vendor payments and inflated contracts. Finance Director Robert Taylor pulls up bank routing information that connects Brad Wilson directly to the stolen funds. Wire transfers to personal accounts coincide perfectly with vendor payment authorizations. He's been stealing from TechCorp for 3 years, Robert states with mathematical certainty. The discrimination was a defensive strategy, to create controversy to prevent financial scrutiny. Oliver's humiliation in Conference Room 15B now makes perfect sense. Brad Wilson's aggressive reaction wasn't just racist prejudice. It was a desperate attempt to maintain control over financial operations before the new CEO discovered the theft. Securities and Exchange Commission investigators arrive at TechCorp headquarters at 2:47 p.m. Federal agents with warrants seeking all documentation related to vendor payments, contract authorizations, and budget oversight procedures. The media narrative shifts dramatically. Discrimination lawsuits become a secondary story to federal fraud investigation involving millions of stolen corporate funds. Boston Herald reporter Marcus Davis contacts Oliver for an exclusive interview about the expanding criminal case. The numbers don't lie, Oliver tells Marcus during Tuesday's recorded interview. Brad Wilson systematically stole from TechCorp while using racist behavior to distract from financial crimes. Board Chairman William Anderson called an emergency session for Wednesday morning. All 7 voting members demand immediate briefing on criminal exposure and SEC investigation timeline. Brad Wilson's legal team shifts strategy from defamation lawsuits to criminal defense preparation. The $5 million litigation threat evaporates as federal prosecutors build an embezzlement case with documentary evidence. Oliver stares at his office window as evening falls over Boston's financial district. The discrimination investigation he began to protect employees uncovered federal crimes that could send Brad Wilson to prison for decades. Tomorrow's emergency board meeting will decide everything. Wednesday's emergency board meeting convenes at 9:00 a.m. in Conference Room 15B. the same location where Brad Wilson humiliated Oliver Thompson exactly 1 week earlier. The irony tastes like justice. 7 board members occupy their designated seats around the mahogany table. SEC investigators position recording equipment per federal warrant requirements. Everything said today becomes potential evidence in criminal prosecution. Brad Wilson enters at 9:03 a.m. with 3 attorneys from Whitman, Bradley & Associates. His confident swagger from the previous week has evaporated, replaced by the defensive posture of a cornered animal. This meeting is being recorded per SEC investigation protocols, Board Chairman William Anderson announces. All statements may be used in federal criminal proceedings. Oliver presents evidence with prosecutorial precision. Bank routing documents project onto wall-mounted screens. Wire transfer authorizations bearing Brad's signature appear in chronological sequence. The money trail leads inexorably to offshore accounts and shell companies. $2.3 million stolen over 36 months, Oliver states with quiet authority. Systematic embezzlement disguised as legitimate vendor payments. Brad Wilson's lead attorney attempts damage control. Our client maintains all expenditures were authorized under his departmental budget authority. Any irregularities result from accounting errors, not criminal intent. Technology Director James Mitchell introduces the deleted email evidence. Messages between Brad Wilson and fictitious vendor companies display on conference room screens like courtroom exhibits. These communications prove deliberate fraud, James explains, reading from recovered digital files. Payment processed as agreed. Funds transferred to account ending 7749. Delete this message immediately. The email timestamp corresponds perfectly with $347,000 vendor payment to Premier Consulting Solutions, the Delaware shell company registered to Brad's brother-in-law. Board member Margaret Davis poses the devastating question. Mr. Wilson, can you explain why you deleted these communications if the transactions were legitimate business expenses? Brad Wilson's face cycles through anger, panic, and resignation. His attorneys whisper urgent consultations while SEC recording equipment captures every word. I was protecting TechCorp's proprietary vendor relationships, Brad stammers, his voice lacking any remaining conviction. Competitive intelligence requires confidential communications protocols. The explanation collapses under basic scrutiny. No legitimate business relationship requires deletion of payment authorization emails or offshore money transfers to shell companies. Finance Director Robert Taylor delivers the final blow. Mr. Wilson's personal bank accounts show deposits totaling $1.7 million during the same period as these fraudulent vendor payments. The money trail is irrefutable. Board Chairman William Anderson calls for immediate vote. All in favor of terminating Bradford Wilson's employment for cause, effective immediately? 7 hands rise simultaneously. Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Wilson, your employment with TechCorp is terminated. Security will escort you from the building. The same security guard who almost arrested Oliver Thompson 1 week earlier now approaches Brad Wilson's chair. Badge number 447 reflects fluorescent lighting as he positions himself behind the disgraced manager. Please surrender your building access card and company equipment, security guard 447 states with professional indifference. Brad Wilson removes his TechCorp identification badge with trembling fingers. The laminated card that once represented power and authority becomes evidence of his professional destruction. Outside conference room 15B, 43 employees applaud as Brad Wilson passes through the executive hallway for the final time. The man who systematically discriminated against minorities while stealing millions from their employer now faces federal criminal prosecution. Oliver Thompson watches from his office window as Brad Wilson exits TechCorp's glass tower, escorted by security, carrying a single cardboard box containing his personal effects. Justice served. Character revealed. The transformation begins today. 6 months later, TechCorp's diversity statistics tell a different story. Oliver Thompson's reforms have transformed corporate culture from systematic exclusion into inclusive excellence. New hiring practices prioritize merit over prejudice. Bias training becomes mandatory for all management positions. Employee testimonials reflect the transformation. Software developer. Marcus Washington returns from Silicon Valley to lead TechCorp's new diversity initiative. This company finally values what I bring, not just how I look, he states during the recorded interview. Financial analyst Jennifer Kim receives promotion to department director, the position Brad Wilson denied her for 3 years. Oliver Thompson proved that character matters more than connections, she explains to the camera. Former engineering associate Carlos Martinez joins virtually from his Hartford office. Justice delayed isn't justice denied when leaders like Oliver Thompson refuse to give up. Brad Wilson faces federal sentencing next month. Embezzlement charges carry maximum penalty of 20 years imprisonment. His legal fees have bankrupted his family. The discrimination lawsuit from former employees proceeds separately in civil court. Oliver's office wall displays a framed copy of TechCorp's new mission statement. Excellence through inclusion, leadership through integrity, success through character. The morning Brad Wilson said, "You don't belong here," he was right about one thing. Oliver Thompson doesn't belong in systems that tolerate discrimination and corruption. He belongs in positions where he can dismantle them. Your character is your real resume, like if you believe in accountability. Subscribe for more stories where justice prevails. What workplace injustice have you witnessed? Share your experience in the comments below. Your voice matters.